The Airbus A380 isn't just the world's largest passenger plane. It's a symbol of ambition, innovation, and what aviation could be at its most daring. But what many people don't know is that the A380 we see today, the A380-800, was just one chapter in a much bigger story. Behind the scenes, Airbus once dreamed of a whole family of A380. Bigger ones, smaller ones, freighters, longer-range versions, even one with upgraded aerodynamics called the A380+. Some made it to production, most didn't. So in this video, we're diving into every A380 variant ever proposed, from those that flew to those that never made it off the drawing board. And along the way, we'll find out what could have been the future of the super jumbo, and why didn't it happen? Number 1. Airbus A380-800. The Airbus A380-800 is the only A380 variant to enter full-scale commercial service. It's the aircraft most people recognize as the super jumbo, a double-decker giant capable of carrying over 850 passengers in an all-economy layout, or between 450 to 615 in typical multi-class configurations. While the model is officially called the A380-800, there are two main engine-based subvariants. Airbus A380-841 engine, Rolls-Royce Trent 900. Operators: Singapore Airlines, Qantas, British Airways, Lufthansa. Notable features: known for quieter operations and smoother performance in some cruise profiles. Airbus A380-861 engine. Engine Alliance GP 7200 Operators, a joint venture between GE and Pratt & Whitney. Emirates, Korean Air, Air France. Notable features: offers strong fuel economy and higher thrust output on long-haul sectors. From 2007 to 2021, Airbus built 251 units of the A380-800, spread across these two main engine variants. While the differences are relatively subtle from a passenger perspective, they were significant to airlines in terms of maintenance contracts, fuel strategy, and route planning. In 2010, Qantas Flight 32, operating an A380-841, suffered a catastrophic uncontained engine failure shortly after takeoff from Singapore. One of the Trent 900 engines exploded mid-air, damaging the wing and hydraulic systems. Fortunately, the aircraft landed safely, but the incident forced Qantas to temporarily ground its A380 fleet and led to a global inspection campaign for the Trent 900. Meanwhile, the Engine Alliance GP 7200, the power plant for the A380-861 variant, also faced a high-profile issue. In 2017, Air France Flight 66 suffered a violent fan disc failure while cruising over Greenland. The engine's front section tore away completely, forcing the flight to divert to Canada. While no one was injured, the event triggered worldwide safety checks for A380, equipped with GP 7200 engines. Number 2. Airbus A380-800 Extended Range Concept. At one point in the A380's development, Airbus explored a concept for an ultra-long-range version of the aircraft, essentially a modified A380-800 that could fly farther than any other passenger plane in the world. Unofficially referred to by some as the A380-800R, with R for range, this version was designed to push the super jumbo's limits. The goal? To achieve a maximum range of around 16,200 kilometers, about 8,750 nautical miles, enough to connect cities like Sydney and London or Los Angeles and Singapore non-stop, even with a full payload. To reach that milestone, Airbus engineers considered adding extra fuel tanks or optimizing existing fuel storage, reducing aircraft weight through lighter cabin materials and revised layouts, improving aerodynamics and cruise performance. But the extended-range A380 never moved beyond the conceptual stage. Airbus never officially designated it as the A380-800R, and no prototypes were ever built. Why not? Because the market for ultra-long-haul flights was, and still is, very limited. Most airlines didn't need a plane that could fly more than 17 hours non-stop. At the same time, more fuel-efficient twin-engine aircraft like the Airbus A350-900 ULR and Boeing 787-9 entered service, offering similar range with much lower operating costs. In the end, the long-range A380 idea faded into the background, a fascinating what-if scenario that never found a home in the real world of airline economics. Number 3. Airbus A380-900. While the A380-800 already held the crown as the largest passenger aircraft ever built, Airbus once had plans to go even bigger, with a stretched version called the A380-900. This proposed variant would have extended the fuselage by about 7 meters, allowing it to carry up to 900 passengers in an all-economy layout, or around 650 to 700 passengers in a typical 3-class configuration. It would also feature an increased maximum takeoff weight to handle the extra load, enhanced landing gear to support the longer frame, and a slightly improved range of up to 15,900 kilometers, about 8,580 nautical miles. The A380-900 wasn't just a dream. It was built into the original A380 design. The wing and landing gear of the A380-800 were engineered to handle a possible future stretch. And at one point, Emirates even showed strong interest, asking Airbus to consider developing the larger version. But while the aircraft looked promising on paper, real-world economics said otherwise. Airlines were already struggling to fill the A380-800 profitably. Increasing capacity even further meant higher fuel consumption, more operating costs, and even fewer airports able to accommodate it. As demand for very large aircraft softened and the focus shifted toward fuel-efficient twins like the 777-300ER, 787, and A350, Airbus quietly shelved the A380-900. No prototypes were built, and no airline placed a firm order. Number 4. Airbus A380-900neo. If the A380-900 was Airbus's vision of bigger, then the A380-900neo was its shot at better. The Neo stood for New Engine Option, borrowing from Airbus's naming style for re-engined, more efficient models like the A320neo and A330neo. The idea was simple. Take the stretched A380-900 platform and pair it with next-generation engines, possibly based on the Rolls-Royce Trent XWB or a new high-efficiency power plant. Aerodynamic improvements like blended winglets and redesigned wing surfaces, and cabin optimization to allow higher seat counts without compromising comfort. Together, these upgrades were expected to cut fuel consumption by up to 13 to 15% per seat, a major leap for a 4-engine aircraft. The range would likely have surpassed even the already ambitious A380-900's 15,900 kilometers. Emirates, Airbus's biggest A380 customer, publicly backed the idea. They pushed hard for a re-engined A380 variant and were ready to place significant orders, provided Airbus committed to it. But despite the support from Emirates, there was no broader market interest. By the mid-2010s, most airlines were moving away from very large aircraft altogether. Demand had shifted toward more flexible, fuel-efficient twin jets like the Boeing 787 and Airbus A350, which could serve more routes with fewer passengers and lower risk. Airbus faced a tough reality. The billions required to develop the A380-900neo couldn't be justified by a single customer, even one as large as Emirates. And in 2019, after orders for the A380 dried up, Airbus pulled the plug on the entire program. The A380-900neo never left the drawing board, but it remains a fascinating what-if scenario in aviation. What if airlines had stayed committed to ultra-high-capacity travel? What if fuel stayed cheap? What if just a few more carriers had said yes? Number 5. Airbus A380F. When Airbus dreamed up the A380, they didn't just picture it as a passenger giant. They also had plans to dominate air cargo. That vision came in the form of the A380-800F, a freighter variant that would have become the largest cargo aircraft in the world by volume. On paper, it was impressive. Payload, up to 150 tons. Range, about 10,400 kilometers, 5,600 nautical miles, fully loaded. Cargo volume, an enormous 1,134 cubic meters, far more than a Boeing 747-8F. Major logistics players like FedEx and UPS were on board early. Both placed firm orders in the mid-2000s, and Airbus even allocated production slots. FedEx ordered 10 units, UPS another 10. It looked like a new era of high-volume air freight was on the horizon, but reality hit hard. The A380 program was already behind schedule due to wiring problems and production complexity. Airbus shifted its focus entirely to passenger deliveries, delaying the freighter timeline indefinitely. That didn't sit well with cargo operators. In 2006, FedEx canceled its entire order and switched to the Boeing 777F, which was cheaper, simpler, and ready sooner. UPS followed shortly after, pulling its order and leaving the freighter program with no launch customers. With no interest left and no prototypes built, Airbus quietly shelved the A380F. It never reached the factory floor. Even today, no A380 has ever flown cargo-only missions. The aircraft's design, while enormous, was simply too heavy, too complex, and too dependent on specialized airports to work well as a freighter. The A380F remains one of aviation's most ambitious what-could-have-been projects. A cargo giant that was technically possible but commercially impossible. Number 6. Airbus A380+. In 2017, Airbus made one last effort to keep the A380 alive. They introduced a concept called the A380+, a package of improvements meant to make the superjumbo more efficient, more profitable, and just maybe more appealing to skeptical airlines. So what was new? New winglets. Redesigned, fuel-saving winglets promised up to 4% better fuel efficiency. Denser seating. Cabin layout tweaks could add up to 80 more seats, without dramatically sacrificing comfort. Improved maintenance schedules. Longer intervals between checks meant less downtime and lower costs. Overall, Airbus claimed the A380 Plus could offer around 13% lower cost per seat compared to the original A380-800. But here's the problem. By 2017, the writing was already on the wall. Airlines had moved on. They were investing in smaller twin-engine aircraft like the Boeing 787 and Airbus A350 jets that offered nearly the same range, far lower fuel burn, and much more flexibility. Not a single airline placed an order for the A380 Plus. Even Emirates, Airbus's strongest supporter, showed only mild interest. And within just 2 years, in 2019, Airbus officially announced the end of the A380 program. The A380 Plus quietly disappeared with it, never making it beyond the design phase. Number 7. Airbus A380-900. While the A380 is famous for being the biggest passenger plane ever built, Airbus once floated the idea of going the other direction. A smaller, lighter version called the A380-700. This proposed variant would have been shorter in length with a reduced fuselage, capable of carrying around 480 to 500 passengers, compared to the A380-800's about 555, in a standard 3-class layout, lighter and more fuel efficient, potentially offering better economics on routes that didn't need the full capacity of the 800. The idea was simple. Not every airline could consistently fill over 500 seats. A trimmed-down A380 might make the concept more accessible, offering the prestige and comfort of the superjumbo, but with fewer financial risks. However, despite the logic, the A380-700 never gained significant traction. Here's why. Airlines were already hesitant to commit to the full-size A380. A smaller version didn't change the core issues, such as high operating costs and limited airport compatibility. The aviation market was shifting. Airlines were favoring flexible, fuel-efficient twin jets like the Boeing 777 and Airbus A350, which could fly similar distances with far lower costs. And from a brand perspective, shrinking the A380 felt like diluting its most powerful trait, its size. So the A380-700 quietly faded from the roadmap. No mock-ups, no orders, not even a serious prototype. It was a logical idea on paper, but one that never truly fit into the changing world of commerce. In the end, only the A380-800 truly made it into widespread service. But even that was enough to change aviation history forever. Whether you flew on it or just watched it take off, the A380 made you feel something. So here's a question for you. If Airbus could bring back just one of these variants, which one would you want to see in the skies? Let me know in the comments below.